This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Three Ma. I am John Kurtz, joined as always by Derek Young from K-State Online and Cole Manbeck, former beat writer for the Manhattan Mercury. This will probably be a little bit more hinged version of the post game that we did on Saturday after K-State beat Kansas 31-27 and come from behind fashion to win their 15th straight. Still 2008, the last time that Kansas beat K-State in football. And I know for all of us around here, finding a way to win that game calls for a little bit from our friends at Holiday Distillery. Whether that is Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon that Cole was drinking on Saturday, or if you just want to throw some 360 vodka into the mix, they've got the hookup for you either way. So make sure that you get out and support those who support us. Great people at Holiday Distillery. And they're trying to hook you guys up even more, all right? If they're not nice enough to you already with what they offer in Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon and 360 Vodka, Cole, tell us about how the people, can go see them at the Iowa State game coming up this weekend.
Yeah. So for those of you who might have been able to make it over last year for the season finale at home against Kansas, Holiday Distillery hosted a fun tailgate on the west side of the football stadium, and it was a one heck of a time. And we'll be doing that again for the season finale this weekend against Iowa State. So west side of the football stadium, parking spot 778. It's toward the north end more of the football stadium and the west side of the lot. Come on by around, close to around 4 o'clock. Everything will be set up by then, and come enjoy a drink with us from Holiday Distillery, 360 Vodka. They'll have all the work set up. You might have seen me tweet a picture about it last year. I might tweet out a reminder of what that looked like last year. It's a good time. I'll be over there. We'll see if we can get DY and John over there as well. And I know some other fun folks will be there. So looking forward to seeing all of you.
And even if it's your own tailgate, it's a night game. So you got plenty of time to throw back some 360 vodka and Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon with the Cats playing in prime time. Again, okay. I was telling someone at the gym this morning who was at the game as a Kansas fan. I was like, man, I did not have a single bit of fun until Will Howard was running backwards to go slide down in the final minute of the game to kill the clock. That was torture. I hated that. I never felt good the entire way until they found a way in the end. And I mean, it's great. It's a relief. It felt more like a relief to me than anything, because I mean, the facts are this. Like, look, Kansas is legit, man. That coaching staff is really legit. The game plan that they put together with Cole Ballard playing quarterback was excellent. And if they don't drop a pick six, if they don't muff a punt, they probably pull it off. And that has to be just excruciating for Kansas fans. But for us on this side, it was just like breathe a sigh of relief that somehow you came out of that game with a win. That is really the prevailing thought to me coming out of that one.
I agree on the relief thought. I'm stupid enough, though, that even when down 27-16, I thought Kansas State still had a chance. I wasn't completely down to the dumps yet, or, admitting defeat, like I've seen a few people prematurely do on.
Who did that? Who did that?
Well, to be fair, it was more than you. It was a large contingent of people. I wasn't there. I still had confidence, stupidly or not. And, like you said, if KU catches that pick six, then my confidence was all for naught. And, that you win by 4. And I know a lot of people have already pointed this out, but you got a 2-point conversion on offense and you got a 2-point conversion on defense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Sean. Thanks for that 2-point conversion on defense. So how many?
Not only that, but the muff punt. I mean, look, Sean Snyder's special teams unit lost the game for Kansas. I mean, a lot of things did, and a lot of things could have changed the game, but they gave up a 3-point swing there when it should have been 14-7. That was quite a bit of momentum and just changed some of the complexity of the game from that point. And then obviously, the muff punt was huge. So, all that talk, all that chatter this offseason. Boy, do I remember the radio segment that I did with a certain KU counterpart arguing over Sean Snyder being hired as KU's special teams coordinator, and what an FU that is to K-State, and how this is going to dramatically change special teams, the stories in the Star about the special teams. Well, get down to the game. Look what happens, boys.
Well,
Look
I was gonna say that's the irony of it all is because there was a lot of chatter this offseason when that occurred, really talking smack to K-State fans when Sean Snyder was hired and how he was going to revitalize the KU special teams, and then they've been bad on special teams numerous times. I guess special teams assistants, his title, he had a weird title at K-State as well at times. And so, I mean, they've had like 4 extra points messed up or botched this year. Talk about Chris Tennett's problems on occasion in K-State special teams. The Oklahoma State game, they had 2 different extra point attempts botched in that game. And so, now I've seen KU fans, and I'm sure most of them are joking that Sean Snyder was hired as a mole now, and a plant in the program is what happened in that game. Clearly, that's not the case. That's just
love you, Sean. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's like Nate Matlack made one heck of a play in an effort to block that extra point, figuring out a way to jump over them without using his hands to lift off on the lineman in front of him. That was an incredible play, and then returned by Keenan Garber to break a couple tackles and outrace everybody to the end zone for the 2 points. And, the muff punt, very fortunate there because Jack Bloomer hit a bad punt. It would have only been like a 20-yarder, and they had to run up, and Wilson fumbles the ball, and K-State recovers it. If they don't recover that, I mean, KU's got the ball at almost the 40-yard line on K-State's side of the field, up 3 with a chance to go up by 2 scores, with 10, 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So pretty significant plays when it came to special teams, and K-State did take advantage and capitalize. And look, sometimes you got to have a little bit of luck on your side. I would also argue, there was the drop pick 6. Certainly K-State caught a huge break there. KU got a touchdown on a drive where they gained 30 yards on a fumble that looked like K-State was going to get on it, right?
That play. I mean, that's yes. The narrative that this was all, fortuitous bounces on the K-State side. I mean, it's just so convenient and easy to forget things like Phillip Brooks being blatantly held on the second drive of the game when K-State's driving to go up 14-0 and really take the wind out of Kansas's sails early when K-State had a great the broadcast, I finally got a replay, and they have it ISO'd on Phillip Brooks, and he is just getting obviously held, and it's like Petros or Alex Faust. Like, neither one of those guys said anything about it while it's on the screen, and I'm like, we just going to ignore this? Like, this happened? So, I mean, there's that, and then, I've never seen a ball fumbled forward that far. You get an explosive play out of Cole Ballard not protecting the football is what happened. So, you get the hell out of here with that narrative. I'm sorry.
Look, like on the note of the turnovers, though, I mean, that's a huge part of this, guys. K-State wins the turnover battle 3-1. We talked about this and how important that was going to be in the games that KU created turnovers for defensive touchdowns. They were tied for the country, the nation's lead in turnovers forced. And now K-State, over their last 6 games, K-State has only turned the ball over offensively 4 times. The defense has forced 16 turnovers. So they're plus 12 in turnover margin over the last 6 games. If you guys recall, we've talked about this before. They were in the hundreds nationally in turnover margin earlier in the year. So now on the season, K-State is plus 9 in turnover margin, which is tied for 11th in the country. Last season, K-State was number 8 in the country in turnover margin at plus 12 and tied for 14th nationally for 24 takeaways. This defense wasn't creating turnovers early in the year. They now have 20 turnovers forced through 11 games. They had 24 last year. Both times they're in the top 25 in turnovers forced nationally. So they're actually 20th in takeaways per game now. So turnover is a huge part of this. K-State wins the turnover battle 3-1. All 3 turnovers for Kansas occur in the second half, with one of them happening in the red zone near the end of the game. So that was a huge thing, and K-State took advantage.
You want another similarity to last year? This team is now 1 win away from finishing the year 9-3 and 7-2 in the Big 12. Same record that won them the Big 12 last year.
Yeah, unfortunately, tiebreaker is not likely to work out in that scenario. Although we guess we can talk about this later. But we took a giant step toward the scenario that would have been great for K-State had the Big 12 not changed their rules.
Except we would have been really frustrated with OU at that point if that rule hadn't changed when we were watching them, screw around with BYU for periods.
Good Lord. Yeah, BYU should have won. I mean, speaking of terrible turnovers and breaks, I mean, throwing that interception at the 1 yard line, that was really awful. I mean, I'll say this, like for Ballard, K-State did get 3 turnovers. The one in the end zone, like he's just trying to make a play on fourth down, you got to give him that. Like, I think that's actually the right play by him, just to throw the ball up there. But I mean, look, the defense made adjustments in the very nick of time. I mean, I'm not sure that they could have gone another series without figuring something out there. They got pretty torched in the first half with KU rolling with Ballard and Lance Leipold saying after the game that Jason Bean was available, which, I mean, Cole, that syncs up kind of with what we were hearing before the game. But they opted to just go with Ballard because that's what they had practiced all week and what they felt good about. And understandably so. Like, that was a pretty masterful job that they did of utilizing a lot of option. Like, the speed option stuff was giving K-State all kinds of problems. It was unbelievably frustrating. It seemed like they were doing a good job of attacking the weak spot in K-State's defense, which is being down to like your 4th-string middle linebacker here at this point. So again, all the talk about Kansas quarterback injuries, like, okay, but against Devin Neal, who I think is probably the best running back in the conference, and then that Kansas rushing attack, like, you're down to your 4th-string linebacker. Like, that's a pretty big deal, all right? Like, both teams were dealing with injuries on both sides of the ball. But they did a tremendous job with that. And Joe Kleinerman found some way, and DY, I guess I'll kick it to you here, to what you saw from the defense and adjustments that were made there. But after they were really back on their heels, and the second half opens up with another one of those plays where Kansas just schemes somebody wide ass open, and Mason Fairchild's running like 70 yards down the sideline. They found a way to adjust, and from that point on, they were really pretty dominant, and the KU offense didn't do much at all.
Yeah, that was really the only play that KU had go well at offense in the second half. So an adjustment was clearly made. They went into halftime and kind of figured it out. It felt like what that adjustment was, I'd have to go back and look at it a little bit more closely. The only thing, obvious to our naked eyes, I would say, that they did differently was maybe, and this is not trying to run the kid down a little bit, but they played Austin Romaine a lot less, and they played Bo Palmer a lot more. So I think that was one of the adjustments, and that's more so because for a true freshman linebacker, playing this KU offense is absolute hell. It's probably even more hell when they throw out the version that they did in Lawrence this past Saturday, when they have a true freshman or a freshman walk-on quarterback. And not only are they running Wildcat stuff, you don't even know where the quarterback's going to line up, right? I think that was probably pretty confusing for Austin Romaine. And I'll go back to it also. In addition to dropping a pick six, muffing that punt, I thought another poor choice, and I say this almost every week, was KU not going to Devin Neal enough. Like, I don't remember too many touches he had that went for less than 5 yards.
He had 18 carries for 138 yards, 7.7 yards per carry. Why has he only got 18 carries? That's my reaction to why I'd be giving him the ball 25 plus times. I mean,
every week it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they feel like he's better at a certain number to keep fresh and have that explosiveness. I don't know, but yeah, KU had 9 runs of 10 yards or more in the game. They had 11 plays that were technically explosive. If you say rushes of 10 yards or more explosives, they had 2 passes of 30 yards or more, and then 9 runs of 10 yards or more in the game. So really, look, what you said about Austin Romaine, that was our concern going into the game. It's not a knock necessarily on Austin Romaine. It's that you're a true freshman linebacker going up against one of the most difficult schemes in college football. I think KU, they've shown this graphic numerous times this season. KU motions more pre-snap than any team in college football. So they get you off balance, they get you outnumbered on edges, and then they scheme guys open. And they were clearly outnumbering K-State on the perimeter on the speed option, and K-State frequently didn't have a guy there to take the pitch man, and it was very frustrating to watch. But it's a difficult scheme. Credit to Andy Kuldenicki and Lance Leipold and what they do, because they were coaching the heck out of that football game for a large portion of it. They really schemed things up against Kansas State, and Kansas State finally got an answer. If you look at it, the first 5 drives of the game, KU has 27 points on 5 drives. That's 5.4 points per drive. Over the last 4 drives of the game, they don't score. And, you take away the 3 and out guys that KU had on the first series of the game. On the next 4 drives, KU scores 4 touchdowns. They have 298 yards of offense on those 4 drives on 35 plays, an average of 8.5 yards per play. But then, 8.5 yards per play. And then
K-State ran 23 plays in the first half. That was it.
Yeah, and that was one of the biggest differences. And in the second half, so KU ran 35 to 23 on plays in the first half, doubled up time of possession. In the second half, K-State ran 37 plays to KU's 22, and K-State owns the time of possession in the fourth quarter, holding the ball for more than 10 plus minutes when it really counts to less than 5 for KU. What I was going to say, though, also those last 4 drives for KU in the game, they gained 79 yards of offense on 19 plays, an average of 4.1 yards per play. They don't score. So you go from 8.5 yards per play on a 4-drive series to the next 4 drives at 4.1 yards per play. You more than cut that number in half. The defense clearly started making some plays. And to your point on Bo Palmer, shout out to him. He made some big plays. He had a pass deflection. He had a sack, a key sack, where he tackled Ballard when they were inside the 20 at K-State's at the end of the game with around 6.5 minutes left, put him in 2nd and 17. And that really helped stall that drive. Bo Palmer made some plays when he came in.
I guess one, maybe not an adjustment, maybe a strategy, so to speak, but one thing that did start working for the defense in the second half, which I think contributed to a little bit more success on that side of the ball, was getting KU into 3rd and longs. They didn't do that in the first half. When you get a freshman, inexperienced walk-on quarterback into 3rd and long, things can go wrong. That's where you saw some of your turnovers. And I know part of it wasn't even Ballard's fault when they got into 3rd and long. I think one was a really bad penalty.
Well, was some of this too, is it just a matter of Kansas running out of tricks in the bag, when they were having to use kind of a different sort of offense here in the first half?
That crossed my mind.
Yeah, you do have a chance to regroup and obviously try to make some adjustments at halftime. And maybe that was just like the Fairchild play was like the one last big heavy hitter that they had left in the bag. And then after that, there was just an element of like, all right, well, this is what we have for today. We're not going to be able to do much else.
That crossed my mind even in the first half. All these tricks and gadgets that they were doing even more than usual because of how different they had to play with Cole Ballard at quarterback. I was like, typically, you don't have like 60 of these things. And some of those things you can't do more than once, too, because the defense will adjust. And obviously they did. KU ran out.
Yeah, well, in the end, I mean, it was just enough, and I was just losing my mind. I've not been more frustrated, I think, in a very long time watching the defense in the first half, knowing what you were up against. But I think, I don't know. I mean, this is more of a KU point, I suppose. Globally, it just to me underscores like that coaching staff is just nails, and I think Kotelnicki is so good, and it's what I've been saying about Jalen Daniels the whole time. I just think he's massively overrated because they scheme things. Like he's just, yes, I think he's the best version of the 3 quarterbacks that they have, but I don't think it's by a ton. And what they've been able to do with Ballard shows that they can just scheme whatever for whoever. And that's better news for Kansas, by the way, as long as Kotelnicki sticks around. I think it's just kind of a system quarterback thing at Kansas. Like they can plug a guy in and they know how to utilize his attributes to the best of their abilities.
I think because of that system, they can have success with a lot of different quarterbacks for sure. What I would say is the Jalen Daniels aspect, he probably, and this isn't like refuting anything you said, but he raises that ceiling a lot more because it's basically that system, but now with someone with a hell of a lot more arm talent.
Yeah, well, yes, fair. And I mean, Ballard does not have that, but he's pretty poised. Like you have to be pretty impressed.
It kind of comes off as game manager to me. Jason Bean's arm is probably not exceptional. And they all can get it done, but Jalen Daniels' arm, I think, pales in comparison to the others.
No, Bean is just so much more erratic. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get. Yeah, I mean, high highs, low lows, but I mean, either way, it is what it is. Kansas loses the game. K-State offensively, I mean, came out like gangbusters. That first drive was great, and it was interesting, the strategy. I know the announcing crew was commenting on this a lot. The strategy from Colin Klein seemed to be to go to the air a lot, when most people, I think, would have thought like, hey, we just watched Texas Tech come out and just ground and pound the entire way. We didn't really see much quarterback run until a couple situations where K-State absolutely had to have it late in the game. I thought that you were going to see more of that too. So we'll break down the offense in just a moment, but let's remind you about our friends at Home Field Apparel. We've got to tell you about the Black Friday sale. If you follow me on Twitter at JLKurtz, you've already seen a little bit about that. But Black Friday sale starts on November 17th and ends November 26th. So we are in the midst of it right now. You got another 6 days, people, almost a week to hit up this Black Friday sale. 20% off the entire site with code Black Friday. It's even better than your 3mod23 code, everybody. Black Friday will get you 20% off. Biggest discount they offer all year. Don't miss out. Items subject to sellout, so they recommend ordering as early as possible so the warehouse and shipping carriers have plenty of time to get shirts out for the holiday season. It's a perfect gift for any sports fan in your life. If you want more good-looking Cats gear, if you want to look like the handsome Derek Young or Cole Manbeck in your home field gear, make sure that you go out and get it right now at homefieldapparel.com. And you can even get every single alma mater or stop that Chris Kleiman has ever been at, too, to match DY clothing collection if you would like to at homefieldapparel.com. I don't know if they have, was it Loris College that he was at? Loris? Way back.
I think so. I don't think they have that.
Well, we could request that. We could request that, DY. So I think you're rocking a home field hoodie, aren't you? Is that what I see there?
Yeah, it might be, but I wasn't totally sure. So I was like, we'll just keep pacing.
I am rocking a home field hoodie as well, but I'm rocking it under the 1998 Michael Bishop jersey. So it's super comfortable though. It's again, the home field hoodies I own are the most comfortable hoodies that I have.
They are very comfortable. My Ole Miss one is actually my most favorite one.
I do love the fact that Cole at 7:55 a.m. on a Monday morning is wearing a football jersey from 1998. But
still fits.
Well, that's good. That's an accomplishment. Yeah.
Well, back then when we were kids, John, the jerseys went down to like your knees. So like back in 1998, this jersey went down, probably past my knees when I was like 12 years old. So yeah, just thought I'd throw it on. I wore this Saturday night, so try to keep the vibes going.
Okay. I respect it. I have respect. I respect for your lifestyle choices. Anyway, okay. Go see our friends at homefieldapparel.com. Hit up that Black Friday sale, and we are back in just a moment.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
So as I mentioned, the offense started off great, hit a bit of a lull. They were really fine, just didn't get the ball much in the first half. That was really the problem. Everything was happening on the other side of the football with the Kansas offense against the K-State defense. Will Howard shook off the play that should have been a pick six. Trayshawn Ward had maybe the biggest play of the game right after that to pop it for a 50-plus yard run and really get the offense rolling. And they just were pretty solid. I was thinking who's the star offensively? Will had a pretty good game, definitely a gritty game. DJ Giddens was pretty good, but it just was like a fairly workmanlike effort, I thought, from the offense in producing enough for K-State to get the win.
I think I would just call what they did resilient, right? Because they only get the ball 23 times in the first half, just kind of kept hanging in there and fought through it, and then was very efficient with the second half, controlled the ball, did what they needed to do to get that win, and came through in the clutch. Will Howard had a solid game. Now, he did miss, I think, one time DJ Giddens for a wide open score where he just overthrew him really badly. He could have thrown a probable game deflating pick six. So there were some cringe moments for Will Howard, but the resiliency comment that I made right off the top here probably is most accurate portrayal of him, because he had all those things kind of go wrong right there in that short stretch. At the end of the day, he's still finding 2 touchdown drives for Kansas State and does enough in the clutch to win the game. So that's kind of been the moniker for his career, but he's resilient, he's strong, he's tough as hell.
If I was going to take an MVP, you could go a couple different directions. I actually might go with DJ Giddens, or I might go with Jace Brown. I mean, Jace Brown actually had a couple huge plays. He had a third and hey, I mean, that was a tough catch. He would have had to really snag that.
That's a catch.
And I don't know about that. He's got to catch that with his fingertips. It's out there.
It's got to be.
Yeah. All right. Well, he had a 3rd and 7 conversion that was key when K-State was down 27-24, and he converts that into around, a 30-yard gain. So, that was a huge play that he converted on. And then obviously the very first play of the game with the explosive where K-State comes out and goes deep. Jace Brown had a really nice game, 96 yards, 4 catches, 24 yards a catch, averaging 18.6 yards per reception now this year on 17 catches. Third time over the last 5 games, he's had at least 4 receptions for 70 or more yards. So he's becoming that explosive guy. And it's really remarkable as a true freshman that he's doing what he's doing. John, do you recall many true freshmen or freshmen in general that have done what Jace Brown's done in the history of Kansas State since we've been watching in the 90s? I mean, Tyler Lockett as a freshman had 18 grabs for 246 yards. And then I went back and looked. Aaron Lockett, I did not know he had in 1998 as a freshman 928 yards receiving.
That's literally what I was about to say. I was like, it was the 2 Lockett bros. And Tyler, I was like, I feel like he was used almost more on special teams as a freshman. He had at least one, in Lawrence, he had a kickoff return for a touchdown as a freshman in 2011. And then Aaron had some huge plays, like that 98 season, Cole. I mean, that Oklahoma State game, he had like a, 90, he had like 3 like 80 plus yard touchdowns where guys would just collapse on him, miss going for the ball, and then he was just gone because he was fast as hell. So
if you want to talk about a true freshman receiver that did some on offense, not really a lot, but a bunch on special teams, Joshua Youngblood.
Yeah. That career did not, that career did not work out.
That was similar to what you just said about Tyler Lockett, his freshman year.
Yeah. And then Kevin Lockett, he had 770 yards as a freshman on 50 receptions. I think those were redshirt freshman years. I can't remember, but
Lockett might have been redshirt freshman too, right?
Yeah, no, I think so. So, I mean, it makes it even more remarkable he's doing what he's doing as a true freshman. So, he was terrific. Obviously, he's given him that verticality in the passing game, that explosiveness. And the thing I'd say about DJ Giddens, guys, he has 102 yards on 21 carries. He averages almost 5 yards per carry in the game. And now on the season, he's got 961 yards on the ground, just needs 39 more yards to get to 1,000. He needs 68 yards on the ground to have the 3rd most rushing yards by a sophomore running back at K-State, behind only Darren Sproles and Deuce Vaughn. His 5.9 yards per rush this season ranked 5th best in a season in K-State history, currently behind only Darren Sproles, who had 2 seasons of more than 6 yards per rush. James Johnson in 2007 had almost 6.4 yards per carry, and Deuce Vaughn in 2021, almost 6 yards per rush. So DJ, almost 1,500 yards rushing now in 2 seasons at Kansas State, and he's averaging 5.8 yards per carry. He's 32nd nationally in yards per rush this season. He's just been a workhorse for this K-State team. And the offensive line, of course, shout out to them as they manned up. And K-State's rushing yards don't look as good as they would have on paper because K-State took 25 yards purposely in intentional team losses at the end as they ran off the final 2 minutes to make sure there was no time left for Kansas. If you take those 3 plays away, K-State actually runs the ball 34 times for 191 yards, which is 5.6 yards per carry, which you'll take any day of the week.
I tell you what, the way that they did that with Will Howard losing all those yards in the last 2 plays, if you had the Will Howard rushing prop to go over, I feel bad for you.
Did they count against it, or did they count? Because on the ESPN box score, they counted it as team loss instead of giving it to Will. I was wondering what the official K-State did.
I guess you're right. It has that on my stat feed as well.
Interesting. That's really interesting that they would do it that. It makes sense, but
it does. But they don't do that for sack yardage. So
yeah.
Well, I hadn't thought about that. Not being much of a gambler myself, that would have been pretty brutal. I still, I had a question too. Someone asked me like after the game. I think it was on my YouTube show last night. Like, hey, why didn't they use Avery Johnson at all? Why was there no quarterback run game? And I was just like, the offense was pretty effective. How many drives did they have, Cole? What was the points per drive for 31 points on however many drives they had?
31 points on 10 drives, so 3.1 points per drive. You take that.
And did that? Are you counting the one at the end of the first half and one at the end of the second half?
No, I didn't count I didn't count the one at the end of the first half. I guess I did technically count the one at the end of the second half since it was 11 plays, but we could take it out because they would have taken a score if they could have, but they were clearly just trying to run the clock. So.
Yeah, I don't count that one because they were necessarily trying to score. They were more so trying to run the clock off.
Yeah, well, if you want to do that, then you could go 31 on 9, which improves the number even more. And you have to remember that, the KU defense isn't great by any means, but they were giving up 2.48 points per drive on the season. They'd make considerable strides in that category. They were much more efficient defensively. And so if you take that 2.48 and K-State is at 3-2, 3-3 points per drive. You'll take that. Just not enough possessions. The 61 plays were the fewest that K-State's ran in a game this year. They've offensively, they had in 10 of their 11 games, or 9 of their 10 games going into that, they'd ran over 70 plays in each. So just it was a low volume possession game because KU was lining up, running the football frequently, and K-State ran it a lot too.
Yeah, they were snapping a ball even in the first half regularly with 2-3 seconds on the play clock. KU. So it was purposeful. They got this exactly the way they wanted it.
Well, yeah, they basically tried to Bill Snyder this thing against K-State, and it almost worked. I mean, it came close, but to me, that's where it leads me into a point here. That's kind of like the narrative coming out of this game, right, is very interesting because I think you could look at it one of two ways, and it's very obvious to see where the split would be on this. But you could say, yeah, I mean, Kansas had an impeccable game plan that they clearly had poured a lot into. I don't know, maybe had been doing a little look-ahead work based on how they played against Texas Tech the week before. And with this incredible game plan, the last game of the booth before it's changing up, the best home crowd that they've had in years, night game, everybody fired up, like this is the time we're going to get it done. And K-State's down to their fourth string middle linebacker with that running game, and you throw the kitchen sink out there and all of that, and K-State plays probably what? C+, B- game, and is down by 11 in the third quarter and walks out of there with a win. Or you can look at it on the other side and say, well, Kansas, down to a third-string quarterback, was able to game plan themselves into an 11-point lead and has clearly really closed the gap. And, it's just a rocket ship headed for the moon. And K-State will never win in the series again. You kind of have two narratives coming out of that game, I think, on both sides. So I will cede the floor to you guys as to which one is closer to the truth.
Minus the rocket ship to the moon part of it, I do think it's probably more so the latter. And look, that crowd was also pretty phenomenal. I got to give them credit. Great atmosphere. Obviously, still a chunk of K-State there, but not nearly as much as you typically have. The place is full. So that was the most amount of volatility that Kansas State players have seen in Lawrence in some time for a football game. And I think that played into the part where they really enjoyed it, in that last minute, and then after the game on the field, staying around and enjoying it with the band and all that stuff. I think that played into it. One detail that, though, it's kind of sticking with me, and it's nothing that I can necessarily prove, but I wonder if they have kind of a normal approach. Like Cole Ballard's not your quarterback, and you don't have to run so many gimmicks. If Kansas State does actually fare better in that type of game, though, because that's probably what they, prepared for however long. So I think those gimmicks and that style of offensive play was actually conducive to KU hanging around.
Yeah, I had wondered about that. I'd given it some thought too. I mean, obviously Jason Bean is an upgrade at quarterback over Cole Ballard. There's no denying that. Look, Cole Ballard, credit to him. I mean, he played well. They averaged 10.1 yards per pass, guys. That's the second most that K-State's given up this season, behind only the UCF game when they gave up 10.6 yards per pass. So, and a lot of that's due to a couple of explosives, obviously, but that's what KU does. So, I've watched a lot of KU games. Like I know they've ran Wildcat, right? I've seen him run Wildcat with Neal and Highshaw and do that, but I hadn't seen him do it to the level that they did, obviously, in this game. And with Lachlan back there, right, at quarterback running I had not seen him back there nearly that much. And so, and look, they took advantage of K-State's linebacker situation, recognizing how beat up K-State was. And then K-State also loses Uso Seumalo in the late third quarter of the game, and he's in a boot after the game. So you lose your starting nose tackle as well, and Damian Ilalio steps in, and gives you a lot of snaps down the stretch. So, KU rushes for 234 yards in the game. I have the number here. I think it's actually one of their best rushing performances on the year. It's the second most allowed by K-State this season, and the 5.7 yards per carry, the third highest allowed by K-State on the year. 5.7 yards per rush by KU were the most for the Jayhawks since they played UCF on October 7th. As well. So, and the 6.9 yards per play that KU averaged, that was tied for a season worst allowed by the K-State defense and was the third most yards per play that KU had recorded and 8 Big 12 games. So K-State's defense struggled a little bit, but at the end of the day, they made enough plays down the stretch, and the offense, I thought some of the biggest things, guys, were obviously we talked about in the red zone, right? KU was dead last in the country, giving up points on 40 of 41 red zone trips this season defensively. And in this game, we talked about K-State had converted 40 of their 50 red zone attempts into touchdowns, an incredibly high number in college football. Well, K-State has 4 red zone trips against KU, and they convert all 4 into touchdowns. So that is a huge factor as well. And then third downs. We talked about how great K-State is on third downs. They're top 10 in the country in third down success. And they go 1 of 5 to start the game on third down. And the second half of that game, they go 7 of 10 on third down. And a lot of them were third and long. And one of the biggest, obviously, the 3rd and 7 pass, the guts to throw the football and not just run it, to convert a 3rd and 7 and end the game with Phillip Brooks catching it on the sideline.
Well, that's what I was talking about. The game was just no fun down to the very end. I mean, that review was awful. Like, I'm sitting through that review trying to figure out what was going to happen was awful, because that was awfully close, man. And I think the whatever the call on the field was probably going to hold up.
Yeah,
so,
I think call stands is the right thing there. But if they wanted to overturn that, there's not a whole lot of complaining you can do in that situation.
Well, you're right. It took some balls, man. It took some balls to dial that up and execute it the way they did, which I expected that they were going to throw it. I think you had to. Like, you can't, at that point, especially the way the defense had been playing, like, you can't just say, like, well, the defense will go get it. I think that's totally the right strategy.
It was remember you watched the OU game with me in the basement at KU, right, John? It was the opposite of what OU did. Remember, they ran the ball. There was that much time left, and they made KU burn their last time out. But we all know with that KU offense, 2 minutes, timeout or not, that's enough time. And look what they did against OU. They went right down and scored. So, yeah, you need to go get – and DY, you said it in the group text at the moment. You don't look to run the clock. You call the play to win the game right there. And they were able to convert. Credit to the veteran quarterback and Will Howard and Phillip Brooks on making the catch.
Because running it when it doesn't, good, assuming it doesn't go for a first down, because you take away a timeout for them. And anymore with these offenses, 2 minutes plus, they don't need a timeout anyway.
Right, exactly. So, plus the way K-State's punting game had gone, I mean, I don't know if they're going to pin them inside like
the only thought process there could have been, Ballard, it started to choke.
Yeah, well, and it would have been more conventional offense. They would have known the pass was coming. Like, I mean, yeah, there's an argument to be made. Like, I understand, but go win the game. Go win the game. Like, you're there to go win the game. They went for it on 4th and goal against Texas, right? Because they're there to win the game on the road. I mean, it's the same sort of deal there, and they did. Yeah. They did bet on themselves, and it worked out. And if you want to bet on yourself, I know a great place to do it. It's our friends at DraftKings. So much to be thankful for this holiday season, guys. Family, friends, food, NFL football all week long. The Kansas Special Teams unit gifting K-State a win. DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping your Thanksgiving week full of action. New customers can bet just $5 on the NFL action to score $150 instantly in bonus bets. No matter your appetite, there's something for you. Money lines, parlays, props, live bets, and so much more. You name it, they've got it. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code KCSN. New customers can bet $5 on the NFL Thanksgiving action to score $150 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with code KCSN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Please play responsibly. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, must be 21 or older in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms.
Ontario's still off the hook. I like it.
Yeah. Ontario's all right. We freed Ontario. Big 12 championship game scenarios. Did you guys see the email that the Big 12 put out? Because
now, and by the way, one of those might need a clarification.
They're apparently now concerned about clarifying their tiebreaker procedures, although it didn't really do a whole. There's still a huge part of this, and I saw the Texas reaction to it. I understand the back half of this. If Texas loses on Friday and 2 or 3 two-loss teams win among K-State, Oklahoma State, Friday or Saturday, there will be 3 or 4 teams tied. Multiple scenarios exist in this circumstance contingent on which teams remain in the tiebreaker pool. That's it. That's all it says. Doesn't break it down at all. Just leave that wide open. And I know Texas fans were like, well, how can we trust this based on what we've already seen with the tiebreaker rules? And we think, that there may be a little something fishy going on here. Hell, man, I don't trust it either. Like, what is that? Like, you guys are just giving us like, well, we'll figure it out when we get there. It's what the hell is going on in the Big 12 offices? Can someone give me Tim Weiser on the phone? I know he'll talk. Cole, we need to reach out to Tim Weiser. Bro, what the hell is going on here? Can you guys figure this is pretty important.
I'll text him right now.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's cool to have DJ Shaq Diesel out at Power and Light. I mean, I sound like an old dude right now, but it's great to have Nelly performing at halftime of the Big 12 championship game. Figure out the blank tiebreakers, you idiots. Like
we did figure out WWE title belts though for the Big 12 championship, which is a tone deaf PR move on the day before we're urging the Big 12 to issue a statement and stop lying about the rule change, to then end up a release the day after, like, hey, WWE title belts for the Big 12 champ. Like, that's their, AKA.
I figured it was strategic and just trying to distract. Like, oh, everyone will be so excited about Roman Reigns that no one's going to care about the tiebreakers. Like, what?
The release statement by the Big 12 last night with their clarification is, AKA, we really hope Texas beats Texas Tech Friday night, so we don't have to figure out what to make up in our tiebreaker scenarios.
The only thing I will say is, like, there wasn't a whole lot you could say on the last part, though, because if there's like that 3 or 4 way tiebreaker, it goes to like what you did against common opponents, and you don't know who those common opponents are until you know who's in the tiebreaker, and you also don't know who's that next ranked person or team as well. So it does. The problem here is the Big 12 is lacking leadership in their messaging, absolutely. But second, the problem is in all these other leagues are going to have to deal with it too, because they're going to the same model, is when you have this many teams and no divisions, there's going to be random ass tiebreaker scenarios that determine who goes to your league title game, because there's no divisions. So you just take the 2 best teams. Well, you have 16, 18 teams. There's going to be weird ass ties.
It's going to get even murkier next year, DY, when you go from 14 this year to 16. Because there's just even less teams playing each other.
You're basically, at least one of your teams almost every single year will advance to the title game based on a very obscure tiebreaker.
I think it honestly should be this, DY. In the event of a 2-way tie, you go head-to-head, obviously. If you end up with 3 or 4-way ties, you go who's ranked higher in the college football playoff.
That's what I think, because then you take away the murkiness. And to be honest, everyone's going to this structure. No divisions, just take the top 2 teams with the college football playoff in mind, because they didn't want that team to take a bad loss.
Because that's supposed to factor in, that playoff ranking, strength of schedule, who you played, who you beat. So you go head-to-head in a 2-way tiebreaker. That makes sense. But then you get into like these 3, 4-way, 5-way tiebreakers, which could easily happen. I think the most simple way is just say they're ranked second highest in the Big 12. They go.
That's what I said last week.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense. I mean, it's not even conducive to Kansas State's chances in this scenario, but it makes sense, because the reason why there's no divisions anymore in any of these leagues is because of the college football playoff and like the resume and stuff like that, because you wanted them to play another data point of playing a really good team, and you wanted that team to avoid taking a bad loss. Like when the ACC title had 7-5 Pittsburgh every year, or the Big Ten, you got the Big Ten West champ every year.
Well, Cole, I mean, I'm dead serious. Why don't you text Tim Weiser about that? Because we know that they're good at changing rules on the fly. We could probably get that change instituted by tomorrow. I mean, if the Big 12
it does benefit Oklahoma, but
Brett McMurphy would be leaking that by 8:15 tomorrow morning.
Get Red River Part 2 for sure. But
I mean, good text Weiser. I don't know. Like, he might be muzzled after our segment together this summer. Like, no, don't go on with the 3 mall guys again. But no, I don't know. I think
I mean, just tell him the idea. Like, hey, text him and be like, hey, man, seems like it would make more sense to just do the tiebreaker based on college football playoff rankings. And then, we'd have a Brett McMurphy tweet, like, breaking. the Big 12 has decided to re-clarify their rule, and bam, there it would happen.
I personally think the rule
when I brought that up as a people got on me and said when they used a BCS, that was always bullshit because some tiebreakers for BCS. Well, this isn't the BCS. Like College Football Playoff Committee, you can complain about it all you want, but it was much better than BCS, which I think was still 2/3 what SID poll, that's what I call the coaches poll, and AP. You take those people away, it's still a better system.
Well, the College Football Playoff loved K-State last year. I mean, remember how high they had them? They had them as the highest ranked 3-loss team. They were a top 10 team. I think they were number 9 heading into the Big 12 championship game last year. So
I think they're going to get a pretty good bump this week, too.
I expect them to bump from 21 to 19 because Tennessee lost and number 20 lost in front of them. UNC that lost right in front of them, too. So 19, 18, right around there. You beat Iowa State. Yeah, maybe you can get the top 15 back-to-back years in the top 15 of the playoff poll. That's pretty successful. And to your point earlier, DY, you beat Iowa State, and you count the Big 12 championship last year. You're 15-4 over the last 2 years against Big 12 opponents. You'll take that.
You have a chance to win 10 games back-to-back.
Yeah.
So I guess the deal here, I mean, for those that are screaming like, okay, John, well, what actually does have to happen for K-State to get in? If Texas beats Texas Tech, but Tech plays Texas Tech's on Friday. So is Oklahoma. Who's Oklahoma playing again? TCU. So is Oklahoma TCU. That game is also on Friday. So you should have a great idea what's going on by Friday. But if Texas wins, you will need Oklahoma to lose to TCU, and you will need Oklahoma State to lose to BYU. That is what would have to happen. If Texas loses, then that's what opens up that whole big scenario that we were just talking about where the Big 12 doesn't even know how to explain it to you. So if Texas loses, things will get crazy and we don't even totally know what exactly it would take at that point. I think that's the best way to state what's going on with it right now.
And as you said, you'll know after Friday because both Texas and Oklahoma play on Friday. Now, if Oklahoma were to lose, especially, then that Oklahoma State game becomes very important for Kansas State's chances, obviously. And that game is also played before Kansas State. They play at 2:30.
Hey, BYU, you're fighting for bowl eligibility. You come into, you go into Stillwater all fired up and don't throw the ball on 1st and goal from the 1-yard line with a backup quarterback. Cool? Okay.
Well, that's the thing. BYU at least showed some life. They rushed for 200 yards on Oklahoma, which they were averaging 90 yards per game on the ground before that. So, Retzloff has played a couple of games now. A little bit of juice to him, but yeah, obviously still very green. I mean, look, you got to try really hard to squint and figure out how this is going to happen. But I don't know, Cole, is Houston discernibly better than BYU? I mean, Houston had Oklahoma State down by 14 on Saturday.
No, I don't think so. So you never know how the pressure, the moment, senior day, stuff like that, getting in the way. Alan Bowman, if he gets hurt, we've seen how bad Oklahoma State's quarterbacks are behind him, which makes it more laughable that Mike Gundy didn't go with Bowman to start the year. Not that Bowman's elite by any means, but he's clearly the best option, and I think everybody knew that. No, I mean, weird things can happen. John, you remember those Black Friday, Thanksgiving game, Black Friday games when Colorado, Nebraska played, and there were a couple bad Colorado teams against top 2 Nebraska teams in the country that gave Nebraska a hell of a fight. I mean, there was the one year Colorado was 3-8, and if they would have won, I think K-State would have went to the Big 12 championship. I can't remember. There were 2 games decided by 3 or less. One went to overtime, and both of them were mediocre to bad Colorado teams playing a top 5 Husker team. So I just say
99. I think 99 K-State came within an eyelash of going to the championship game. Colorado missed a field goal or something at the end of the game.
Yes. Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have been 3 straight Big 12 championship games for K-State if not for that.
I will say it's probably time to kind of squint a little bit at the bowl scenarios as well.
No, do we have to? That just does not excite me at all. I just don't care. The only
thing I will say is, I would much rather go to San Antonio than Orlando. Orlando at that time of year is just terrible. I've heard horror stories about what that looks like. So that makes the Pop-Tarts Bowl to me a little bit less desirable. But the Alamo Bowl is just tough because they can get there. Kansas State can get to the Alamo Bowl for sure. Obviously, it requires a win over Iowa State. But the issue may be that if Oklahoma's not in the New Year's Six, they're going to go to the Alamo Bowl.
Here's the thing, Derek. The only thing that excites me at all about bowl season is that Notre Dame would be a possibility in the Pop-Tart Bowl. That's
to be honest, I'm
the only matchup that I would get in any way excited about, really. Otherwise, and K-State's never been there. That's the other. I've been to the Alamo Bowl 100 times.
Well, I'm going to diffuse your excitement for the Pop-Tarts Bowl pretty quickly then, because, Brett McMurphy's had his mistakes and has gotten annoying a little bit this year. But when it comes to bowl stuff, he's typically one of the more accurate ones. He has Kansas State in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, but playing NC State.
Well, that wouldn't be that sexy of a matchup, but I'd agree. Who would ever melt down about missing the opportunity to play Notre Dame and the bowl in Orlando? I don't know if I've ever done that before. The bowls are such a sham, man. It's hard to know how that selection process is going to work. So, anyways, I'll talk about it more in just 1 minute as I let my garage door guy in. I'll be right back, guys. Keep talking about the bowl setup and catch me up in just 1 minute.
I mean, as long as it's not the Liberty Bowl, like that's really my. It's not the Liberty Bowl.
There is a doomsday scenario where it could come into question, because if Oklahoma does go to the Alamo Bowl, the Pop-Tarts Bowl, what if they take Oklahoma State, right? And then you go to the Texas Bowl, it says, well, we just had Kansas State, so we're going to take KU. Then K-State goes down to Liberty. So that's obviously a nightmare scenario. Also, not a very likely scenario, though.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it doesn't, even then I say I don't like the Liberty. It doesn't matter as much to me now that I'm not traveling and covering the team. Like, I don't have to be there to experience 40-degree rain Memphis weather on New Year's and sit in a press box where my seat has an obstructed view of a pole. Go to the...
Yeah, or sitting in
the worst college football stadium I've ever been to. And I say that as somebody that's been to the Jack Trice press box and that has been to Lawrence, the booth in Lawrence many a time. I do not have to experience that even if K-State is playing there. So
that's the same place that had a press conference during the week, lose electricity.
Yeah, we twice. We had 2 press conferences during the week of the Liberty Bowl where the electricity went out. There was no Wi-Fi in the post-game press conference room. Like, I could go.
That was a Scotty Hazelton presser, I believe. Scotty Hazelton. Shout out.
Yeah. I will never. I'll never. Like, we're sitting in like a little hotel conference room, and it's just like you're doing a press conference, and then just like, shoot, all the electricity's out. Like,
but by the way, that was 2019, December 2019, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And that was Scotty Hazelton, who's now the defensive coordinator of Michigan State. I think he's still there. I don't know. He was on their firing squad there for a minute. But that was the first time anyone mentioned anything about Austin Moore and calling him the machine, was Scotty Hazelton in that particular press conference.
Oh, wow. Good memory. Nick, by the way, our producer, who says last year at the Liberty Bowl for Kansas, no heat, no running water. I'm like, well, that checks out. I mean, that's no electricity, no heat, no running water. I feel a little bit. The Liberty Bowl people were very nice. The guy, I'm forgetting the guy, Harold something, I think, Greater. The guy that ran the bowl, at least back in 2019 when I went in 15 and 19, and very nice, extremely nice people that were there with the bowl. So I do appreciate that, but it just didn't have a lot to offer. Both times it was like dreary and cold. Both times that we were there in 15 and 19, it was just like, I mean, I'm hanging out in Memphis, getting rained on while it's 40 degrees. It was not fun.
I do remember them getting pissed at me because I kept calling it the Liberty Bowl and wouldn't put AutoZone in front of it. And they got very cussy about that.
Well, pay your respects. Pay your respects to AutoZone. What are you, a Jiffy Lube man? Get out of here. Pay your respects to AutoZone.
I stepped in right as you guys are bashing the Liberty Bowl, I love those sponsors.
I provided the doomsday scenario where Gibbs, they could fall. Not very likely. But
they're not falling to the Liberty Bowl. So, I'll just go ahead and make that bold prediction right now. So
I don't think it's that bold. I just called it very unlikely to possible.
I think they're going to go to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, honestly. Even I still think OU's got a good chance to get into the playoff picture. All they need, they're going. Not the playoff. I meant New Year's.
Yeah, like you mean New Year's 6, right?
Yeah, well, I think Oklahoma is making the New Year's 6. There's you don't have to really try hard to get the Sooners in the New Year's 6, especially if Texas makes the playoff.
Don't they have to get top 12 in the playoff poll to be eligible? Is that right?
To be eligible, or maybe
I thought they made a rule that you have to be a top 12 playoff team to be eligible for an
Probably.
at-large.
But if Texas ends up in the top 4, do you know how good that win for Oklahoma looks? And they probably can jump teams just based on that.
Well, they should jump Penn State. Well, I was going to say they could jump Penn State. Yeah, and Nick says top 11 technically because they do take the highest ranked Group of 5 team. Tulane is going to be the highest ranked as it looks right now, so they might get back-to-back Year 6 bowls.
Doesn't that Group of 5 team technically have to be ranked, though?
Yeah, they have to be ranked. It's the highest ranked Group of 5.
Tulane's barely ranked. We'll just put it out.
As long as they went out, they'll probably be safe. The only thing you have to be top 12, and then the bowls can pass up on a team in front of you. So yeah, they have the opportunity as long as you're top 12. Like somebody that's ranked 10, they could still bypass you and take the team ranked 12.
Yeah, well, I think Texas is getting in the playoff in the top 4 some way somehow. And if that happens, I think Oklahoma does good in Year 6 because that really boosts their win.
Well, here's where, so right now OU's 14th. They're going to move to 13th with Oregon State losing against Washington. And then Louisville is in front of them. Louisville's going to play Florida State in the ACC championship. I think Louisville's a fraud, to be honest. They should have lost to Virginia.
Yeah, Florida State worst team for
Jordan Travis.
Yeah, I know, but I still think Florida State will figure out a way to win. So, I don't know the FSU backup.
Louisville's a fraud. I don't love their personnel, but the Brahms can coach their butts off.
Well, they were down 24-17 at home to Virginia with 5 minutes left in the game. So just 2 weeks ago. So I watched that game because there was nothing else on, and I was very underwhelmed. So
yeah, well, that might have been their worst game too.
Yeah,
you saw them at their worst.
Yeah. So I mean, look. Bottom line is, I think K-State will probably go to the Pop-Tarts. Well, I'd love the Alamo DUI. That would be a simple.
See, I haven't gone to the Alamo Bowl, and I don't want to go to Orlando, Florida in Christmas time because I've heard they literally someone that went a couple of years ago said the cheapest hotel is like $1,000.
Well, just hit up on 3. Talk to Shannon and figure it out.
Well, if that's the case, imagine a flight. Jeez, I mean, it's just impossible because it's Disney World, Christmas. It's where everyone wants to be. Oh, not everyone, but a lot.
Well, you could stay in Tampa.
Yeah, and get a drive I-4. I used to live there. I'm not driving I-4.
I don't even know how far Tampa is. You know my geography. I thought Ontario was.
It's not
a city.
It's definitely drivable. It's like 2-3 hours, but it's just I-4. That's why they call it the Battle on I-4 between UCF and USF. But driving that in the wintertime, you're going to be in probably bumper to bumper traffic.
When you get a chance to play NC State, man, you just name your price. It doesn't matter.
I would say possible Alamo Bowl opponent, you're looking at Arizona or Oregon State.
Yeah, which Arizona would be horrendous. You're already going to play them in the non-con next year, and I don't want to play them either time because they look damn good. I want no part of Arizona. Oregon State's fine, but that's also not very sexy. I don't know. That's why the bull stuff.
I would rather that than a non-Notre Dame ACC school.
Probably, I guess. It's 6-1, half dozen of the other. You're telling me NC State versus Oregon State as your bowl opponent? No disrespect to those schools. It doesn't do much for me. Cole, here's the real question. Here's the real question, Cole. How bad does K-State? How badly do the Wildcats have to beat Iowa State on Saturday to get into the top 11 to be New Year's 6 eligible? Can we, if it's 110 to nothing, will that impress the voters enough? Can we do that?
That could. That might do something for you. The computers already love K-State. It's like a top 10 team. I mean, 110 to nothing. That the computers might put K-State number 1. With an inflated game like that. Well, look, I mean, John, K-State has beaten all their home opponents by an average margin of 45-13 or 45-12. So, look, I don't think getting to the top 12.
Cole, do you have anything planned for Iowa State, similar to last year? For our
for a segment, I was like, well, I'm going to the Holiday Distillery tailgate. I have to feel it, guys. I can't force it. So it has to come natural.
Something like because I wanted to bring this up. That guy, I don't want to say his name, but you almost have to. Is rant about Will Howard after the game where he just absolutely loses his mind. Like,
Do you want me to rant about Will or like their like quarterback Rocco for losing boxes?
Yeah, I'd like it to be about Rocco. Tell Rocco that he's going to be selling insurance.
And he's a bum.
Yeah, that was so out of left field, man. I didn't understand. I was so confused.
The intensity and the ferociousness in his voice, he's literally losing his mind and screaming.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Cole, really, I was about to say, I don't know that I have a ton of emotion left in the tank this week for Iowa State. Like, I'm just kind of like,
you better get refocused because DY already said on our Patreon pod, like, he's like, they could lose to Iowa State because this is a letdown opportunity, all right? You don't want to lose to Iowa State. You don't want to give Matt Campbell.
They were enjoying it?
Yeah, and you don't want to give Matt Campbell 7 wins. I mean, they'll build a statue for that there.
I thought you were going to say they're building another bridge.
Well, that's what I was thinking. A second bridge, because that first bridge, you're worried about a human clog. Remember what Kate said to the Iowa newspaper? Worried about a human clog on that bridge. And so if you could build a second walkway, you'll be fixed. So no, I maybe I'll do a segment urging Kansas State to build a pedestrian bridge like Iowa State or something, which is actually in the plans.
Here's what you do. All right. You build a new bridge. It's the Matt Campbell Memorial Bridge, and it is 6 feet long by 6 feet wide. That's what you do. That's how you perfectly memorialize Matt Campbell. That's what you do.
Yeah. Oh, well, we could do something with a hot seat thing, although that feels like it's died down,
Yeah, but it has, because they started to win. But if you bring it up, he may lose his mind.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. But maybe it's just a segment like pleading to Kansas State to build a pedestrian bridge, because every 5 years or so, somebody, a car has to stop on Kimball Avenue to let somebody walk across. So, it's dangerous. It actually would be handy to have a bridge over there. But I think it's being planned. It's part of the foundation project.
So you don't seem very worried about the clones.
Well, I was a little worried that you just said, "Man, I'm emotionally taxed. I don't really have anything to give to this." So, and then I got DY on Patreon.
But if we need John to beat Iowa State, then we're already screwed. So
you're in trouble there.
Yeah, I'll get you all riled up for this one, John. So you don't want to end the season with a loss to Iowa State. Get to 9-3, and have some energy for a potential 10-win season. And honestly, I'd love to play Notre Dame, but at this point, it's kind of like, I don't even care who the opponent is. Just get me 10 wins. So I can say we won back-to-back years of 10 games.
It'll be nice. And hey, maybe Texas Tech's got a little magic in them. I mean, they're bowl eligible now. A dominating win they had over UCF this weekend. I mean, they just crushed them. So
Colton Boomer gets a kick blocked on an extra point to tie the game. I just talked about Black Friday magic, man. Crazy stuff happens on those Black Friday games. I could see the Red Raiders roll in there.
Well, and remember, back to the Brett Yormark comments way back when, this is the conspiracy game, all right? This is when Yormark's going to get it figured out. He's going to be there in Austin, supposedly. They requested a credential for him. I saw that. So he's going to be there. They're going to figure out something. Something fishy will be going on. The officiating crew, the fix is in. Karen's going to take care of it. I think Texas Tech will win. That's what's going to happen.
He's just following around Texas, because wasn't he in Ames too?
Yeah, he was. He wasn't in Ames.
He's following Texas around either. So he might just be ensuring that the Longhorns get in.
Well, DY, the problem is you can't trust Iowa State when you need them to do something. And Brett Yormark is new. He didn't understand that. So he went to Austin. He was trying to get that, the conspiracy figured out and let Iowa State win the game. But Matt Campbell and the Cyclones, when you need to count on them, they're going to screw it up. So it's just a learning lesson. That's just Yormark being a little bit green. He's figured it out now. He'll never count on Iowa State again. It'll be okay.
He's green and counting on Iowa State and composing tiebreaker scenarios.
So really, you guys are really bullying Iowa State. Just feels
well. I just quoted Brett Yormark.
That's what you wanted out of me. Now you're getting it. What more do you want?
I don't know what I want right now.
Okay,
I'll have to think about that.
Think about that. You think about that, and we'll get it figured out for the next show.
Okay.
I think that's going to wrap it up for all of us. Thanks to our friends at Holiday Distillery. Make sure that you hit up the Holiday Distillery tailgate. this weekend before the Iowa State game, and come hang out, come have a good time. Our friends at Home Field Apparel, that Black Friday sale, code Black Friday for 20% off at homefieldapparel.com through the 26th. So make sure that you do that. And if you're going to bet, use the DraftKings app, people. Thanks to Nick Springer behind the scenes. For Derek Young and Cole Manbeck, I'm John Kurtz. Thanks for listening to another edition of Three Law.